이 위대한 구원. 크로스포인트 주니어 처치에서 전해드리는 이 시간, 담당의 Darin Pantley 형제입니다.
Hello, this is Darin Pantley from Crosspoint Bible Church. Some professions are easy to explain. For example, if you say you are a doctor, everyone understands what that means. But it's more complicated than that, because what kind of doctor are you? Are you focused on internal medicine, ear, nose, throat? Maybe you're a cardiologist. But even that is a little vague, because you might be a heart failure cardiologist, a pediatric cardiologist, or a cardio-oncologist. That's why when people ask what I do, I just say I work with computers. If they want more details, I can say I have experience with systems programming and platform engineering. But that might be too much information. There's a reason we tend to specialize in our various professions. Even in school, you don't study everything. You pick out classes that sound interesting and focus on those. By narrowing the focus and becoming an expert in something more narrow, we can go deeper and fully understand the topic. Some people call this T-shaped knowledge, because you can go deep in a specific area. That's the vertical line in the T. But you have more shallow knowledge in other areas. That's the horizontal line in the T shape. When we read the Bible, we can see how God chose very specific people to focus in very specific areas. Like in Exodus, when Israel created the Ark of the Covenant. It was a wooden box covered in a thin layer of gold, which held stone tablets. It was very special, not because of the gold or the tablets, but because it represented instructions from God. They put rings on the box and put poles through the rings to carry it. Moses gave certain groups of people carts and oxen so they could work. But he didn't give any oxen to the people who carried the ark. They carried it themselves, using the poles, because that's how God wanted it done. And no one else tried to move it, for it is written, "They must not touch the holy things, or they will die." With all of that in mind, it's surprising to read how King David ignored those instructions and had it put on a cart to move it. The men who normally carried the ark using the poles would have known better. They knew that wasn't the correct way to move the ark. They were the specialists. And David wasn't the only person doing things his way. When the oxen stumbled, and it looked like the ark might fall, a man named Uzzah reached out and tried to stabilize it. It says, God struck him down, and he died there beside the ark of God. Because Uzzah second-guessed God. You can say he did it out of instinct, but why had he cultivated an instinct that treated God's word like a casual recommendation, rather than a serious command? So let's think about how this applies to us today. If you aren't feeling well, you should see a doctor. That's the person who is best qualified to help. And if your primary care physician isn't sure what to do, they'll reach out to a specialist and get expert advice. In my profession, sometimes I have to tell people, don't press that button or you'll break your computer. We're each fulfilling our God-given roles as dedicated specialists. When people decide not to listen, they get sick or end up with a broken computer. What happens when we act like Uzzah? Ignore the experts and do whatever we feel like in the moment? What happens when we decide we have a better plan than God?
지금까지 크로스포인트 주니어 처치에서 전해드렸습니다. 언어와 문화의 장벽을 없애고 실시간 동시 통역이 제공되는 크로스포인트 주니어 처치의 주일 예배 시간은 오전 11시이며 교회에 대한 안내는 847-212-6775로 문의해 주시길 바랍니다.